Sometimes it's as simple as you're overstressed and you do need to figure out, how do I manage my stress? But sometimes it's, I have a lot of unacknowledged pain and sadness, or I don't feel appreciated, all of these feelings swirling around. And then the moment that somebody doesn't do what we want, we're triggered, we're activated right into our lower level survival brain. So, as I was just saying before I started that recording, I have a little bit of an agenda here today, and that is to help us reset. We're coming into the end of the year. A lot of us are going to have holiday times. We're going to go into lots of busy times. And so my goal for today, my goal is really to help us reset and figure out why we get so rushed, why we can't think of the right words to say, even though we've been watching and listening and practicing conscious parenting, why it's so hard so often, or why we still get so angry, or even why our kids still get so angry, or maybe it still seems like I've had some parents say, like, they run the house. Everything is always about the kids having the decision making, and parents are trying to figure out, well, how do I get out of that? How do I get so that they're not the ones that seemingly are in charge? So I do have a little bit of a agenda there, but that's really to help us reset, because I want to get to the deeper issue. I want to get to the deeper issue. I don't want us running around putting out behavior fires, as I always say. I want us really getting to the root cause of it. And sometimes the root cause of it is that we just haven't given ourselves a hug. We haven't given ourselves some grace. We haven't been there consciously looking inside, or even being aware of what's going on inside. And so that can make us want to control the external, want to control everybody else, not even just our kids, but everybody, because it feels like we have no control, because we're actually resisting focusing on what would help us feel better, which is to sometimes go inside. Not always, right? You guys, this is conscious, not perfect. Not everything is, are no absolutes for me. I mean, there's a couple, like connection, empathy always, but every situation is going to be different. So whatever your child is struggling with, know that where you are and where your child is right where you're supposed to be. We're going to start there. We're not going to try to pull you into some experience or emotional state that you're not at. I'm not going to try to say to you, well, if you're not calm, you just got to get calm. Right? That doesn't do you a lot of good. So I want to help us kind of dig deep. And first, sometimes that's about, well, where do you feel that when your child puts up that big no, mom flag? Where does that hit you in your body? It's about we're going to go right into our body intelligence. So the reason that I wanted to talk about some of these experiences that we have with not knowing what to say, or feeling like our anger gets the best of us, even though we know that we're supposed to be empathetic, is because one of the questions that came in was from a parent who asked, I often find myself losing my temper with my children, and I know it's not helping the situation. So what strategies can I use to better control my anger and maintain my patience during these challenging moments when I'm not that skilled? So what can we do? What do we do when if we're often losing our temper? And that can happen not because we're necessarily always unskilled at self-regulation. Sometimes it happens because we're going through a really stressful time. Can you think of a stressful time that you've had when you can look back and go, oh yeah, my actions, my words, my behavior, I wasn't always so resourceful. I remember that time when we were moving and I was very short with my kids. Or I remember that time that my partner was in the hospital and the kids were just, nobody could regulate, and I was always unregulated. What did that do to me? We want to think back and not, like, yes, our kids sometimes can be definitely the trigger that creates this sense of, oh no, stress where we get activated. But sometimes it's things that we're carrying in. Stressful moments like getting ready for school and time pressure. Oh, yes, and time pressure. So this is a big one, and we talked about this recently, but what does that time pressure do to us? Because we're going to put it on the kids. Well, they have to hurry up. Well, they can't dawdle. Well, they can't do this. Well, they can't do that. But if we stop and think, okay, they're children. There are going to, no, we want to move them out of the dawdling, right? But there are going to be times when they just see the shiny thing, the game, the toys, or they're avoiding, and they're not going to want to go. Like, that's part of being a child. So if we know to expect that, and then that moment happens, but we know it's going to happen because that's part of childhood, then what's really getting us? Like, what does that time pressure do in that moment? Or is it, I'm going to be embarrassed if we're late? Is it, I feel responsible for getting to work myself on time, and I know that this is going to put pressure on me to have to move faster, or it's inconvenience to me now? And I'm not saying any of that is wrong, unnecessary. It's totally 100% valid to feel that pressure, to feel then embarrassed because you got the kids there to school late, or feel embarrassed because you got to work late, or you didn't have time to meet somebody and do what you said that you were going to do for them, whatever it may be. I don't want to say that you shouldn't have those feelings. I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to say, oh, we'll just get rid of those feelings and then it'll be fine. No. When we actually honor that, if you come to me and you say, my kids are stressing me out and I feel worried that I'm not doing right by them, I'm not doing the best for them, I feel like I'm failing. I'm not going to say, well, don't feel like that. That's silly. You're doing great. I don't want to deny you're feeling that. Sometimes we try to deny it, or we just try to go, oh, well, I'm okay. I'm feeling that. I get it. Now what do I do next? And so today, back to my agenda is, I want you to just sit in that feeling. Like, what does that feel like? So think about a time when you're losing your temper with your children and you can't, it's not helping, but you can't seem to shift out of that. What I want you to do is kind of lean into it, as they say. I really want you to, sometimes you have to get things done, but you can go back later and think about what your body was doing this morning when you felt that pressure. And you can think about, what was I really worried about? Yes, I needed to get the kids on time, but or I needed to get to work on time. But what was it that was really in there, causing this discomfort, causing me to be activated? Sometimes it is just the time, but what's connected to that? Because we're going to be late sometimes. That's just the way it is. And kids, they move slowly. Some of them, not all of them. You may have, and that may confuse you too. You may have one child and you're like, this one child does perfectly. They don't need any help. They're doing it. And this child who's older should be doing it, right? We put a lot of sort of age-based criteria around what our expectations are for our children. That will get us in trouble because kids are so different. Their experiences, even though they're living in the same house, even may be very different because their temperaments are different. Their relationship with each family member or each parent may be very different. So they have very different perspectives. So what we expect from one child, when we don't see it in another child, that may also get us thinking all kinds of things. I'm not doing it right, or this child should be this way. Why aren't they? There's something wrong with them. I need to figure out what's wrong with them. All of these things that run through our head. And even just talking about them, I feel all activated in my body. I don't know about you guys, but think about when you're talking about the challenges that you're having. I want us just to focus on what's happening in our body for the next week. So yes, get through the moment, do the best you can in that moment, but then go back and figure out what, why was I losing my temper?